Powered by Go Sports and in partnership with TSN, this is Season 3, Episode 37 of the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. We've got Matt Calvert, former NHL player. Ray, it sounds weird to say that, right? And Calvert is part of the Cal Sports Management Group now. You know, they came out public last week. So what that means is he's going to be a development coach and a hockey agent moving forward, but not that far removed from being a real gritty, good two-way NHL player.
Yeah, you know, I was saying off air, Dregs, I think you were getting Tiny a drink
Coffee.
or something, or maybe it was a coffee. But I said every year, if you look at the roster on the last day of the season, the next year, there's about 75 players that just disappear.
Yeah.
Like they don't retire, they retire, but they don't really retire. They're not in the American League. They're not in Europe. They're just gone. And you don't really know why. And you kind of lose track because the season moves on. Matt Calvert was one of those players.
Agreed.
And injuries took him from the game probably earlier than he was ready to go. And he could very easily be in Colorado right now.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Don't you love it though, when, and you're kind of part of this model, and we talk about it in the podcast with Matt, but when players like this have a plan, a post-hockey plan. Now, it's a plan, doesn't mean that it's going to work out the way it has for you as a broadcaster, or you hope that it works out for Matt Calvert as an agent and a development coach. But as he'll speak to, I mean, he's known for a long time that this was the direction that he was likely headed post-career.
Yeah, but he's lucky because he had a real passion for this second career that he's about to embark on. A lot of players want to have a plan. They think about stuff. What could I do? Because you all know it's coming to an end eventually, but they don't even know where to start. And it's easy to say, oh, you should go to school. For what? And how much time do you have? And going to school, does that mean you could get a couple of courses per year or one course? You know, so it's nice in theory, but it's hard to put into practice. But I really feel for the guys that get to the end of the road and they don't think it's the end of the road. They think there's another year there, and then there's not. And so good on Matt and those like him that are able to take that next step and at least begin this new road, whatever it might be for them. For Matt, it's in the agency side.
Great conversation with Matt Calvert coming up on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast. Headlines are brought to you by our friends at Boston Pizza. Boston Pizza Patio is back, Ray. Delicious new summer menu, but it's only for a limited time. So you've got the new Mexican-inspired items like the Fiesta Salad, the loaded Tex-Mex fries. Check it out. Visit your local BP today because Boston Pizza is the place where those in the know patio. Colorado, ready to be a Stanley Cup champion? Are you convinced? Did you need convincing before the Western Conference final sweep of the Edmonton Oilers?
I don't think I needed convincing, but I'll tell you what I liked. Down their starting goaltender, down injured players. They win the first game. Whatever, I even forget, what was that? 9-6, 8-5, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the series changed because they had to change it. And they had to play what I'll call a more playoff ready style game. Sure. And they were able to do that. They also have this luxury. Hey, you lose Nazem Kadri, who's just had an amazing year for them. Oh, we'll just move Mikko Rantanen into the middle of the ice. Like, who's got a player like that at their disposal?
Yeah.
That can do that for you. I don't need convincing. I think they're the favorite. They're not going to win with Pavel Francouz in goal.
Yeah.
I think they need a Darcy Kemper, and I think he's going to have to play better than average. Because this isn't a walk in the park for Colorado. The Eastern team is going to be a problem, in my opinion, in particular because both of them have all-world goalies.
Okay, we'll get to Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers as we record here on Thursday momentarily. Edmonton, I'm going to pepper you with a few different scenarios here, but let's just start with a basic overview. Yeah, there's great disappointment with McDavid and Draisaitl and everyone that wears the sweater of the Edmonton Oilers. But when you measure the body of the season, is it fair to call it a season of success?
They're one of the final four teams. How could
Yeah.
it not be? Like, I don't even know that this. I'm reading some of the articles and, hearing some of the media out of Edmonton, and I'm like, so Stanley Cup is the only measure of success?
That's pretty
Like,
tough.
what's wrong with those people?
Yeah.
Like, this is an unqualified success. You can complain about a contract. Oh, you shouldn't have signed Duncan Keith, or, or I don't know, you should have had a better goalie, or shoulda. Where do these players come from?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where are you making it fit in a salary cap world? To get to the Final Four is a remarkable achievement for the Oilers, or for anybody else for that matter. I will tell you though, Dregs, I do look at them a little bit like when San Jose was at their best.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sharks made the conference finals back-to-back years. And they won one game.
Yeah.
So you're one game better than the second round loser. Right? So you have to look at it like, so Edmonton, and I'm calling it an unqualified success, they got halfway to a Stanley Cup.
Mm-hmm.
They needed 8 more wins.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot. And that's how I felt once I took a step back in New York in '93. Man, it was amazing. We were in the conference finals. Wow, we needed 7 more wins. Like, that was eye-opening to me.
Yeah. All right. So, look, Jay Woodcroft will get extended as head coach of the Edmonton Oilers.
And he should.
He should, right. Deservedly so. There's some questions with the staff. Is Glenn Gulletson coming back? Dave Mans, all of that. That's fine. So let's look at it purely from a roster perspective. How big of a priority would Evander Kane be? Or, I mean, we can do the math, and you can see that the math probably doesn't make sense if Evander Kane is going to command $7 million or north of $7 million on an annual average salary. And then you look at the term. And then what about goaltending? Mike Smith made it pretty clear that he's got some thinking to do about next year. And if he decides he wants to come back, is that a strong enough tandem if it is Mike Smith and Stuart Skinner, as an example? Because they do look at Skinner as potentially being the goalie of the future in Edmonton. So just address those two things, the Kane situation and then goaltending.
Well, Kane first. There was every likelihood that Evander Kane on a 6-month contract was going to work out.
Yeah.
Because Kane clearly can see the writing here that this is your last best chance.
Yeah.
And, you get to play with either Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Sometimes you get to play with both. What a great place to be. And he hit it out of the park. He was fantastic. So there's 2 things to Kane, of course, that you have to weigh. And Ken Holland and Jay Woodcroft would know this better than anybody else. It doesn't matter what me and you think. They would know it better than anyone else. How did he fit in the room? Do you trust that a 3-year term, you're going to get this Evander Kane? That's 2. Number 3 is he's 31 years old. Mm-hmm. I think he's 31. Yeah, he's going to be 31 this year. At 31, 32, 33, does his game slow down for the type of player that he has to be effective? Those are the factors outside of the money. If somebody offers him 4 years, or they're not going to take that term, I wouldn't think.
Right.
So I think they're in a tough spot, because pretty clearly when I say did he fit, the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he fit. He had an amazing run.
Terrific.
An amazing run. Can you afford him? Well, that gets to the next part, is the goaltending. And Ken Holland has a theory. He's said it to me before just in talking, but he just said it in his press conference the other day. If you don't have one of the top 5 or 6 or 7 goalies in the league, you can't get caught paying too much for a position that everybody else is kind of the same.
Right.
So you can say, go get a better goalie. Who? And at what cost? So a top end goalie is going to be $6 and $7 to $8 million. They're not paying that.
No.
Because, well, they're not paying that. And if they do, they're certainly not signing Kane.
No.
So that's something they have to get through. Is Smith and Stuart Skinner a viable combination? Not at the start of the year for me.
Okay.
Because Skinner really would just be learning the position at the NHL level for the first time, because he would be on the team, not an up and down fill-in guy. I watched him in the American League. I went out and watched him play in Abbotsford one day, Vancouver's farm team. And I was like, oh my God, he's too good for this league. Like every shot, he was standing there. Poof, it hit him right in the chest. And you're like, he's too good for this league. But there is a step.
Yeah.
Mike Smith's going to be, what, 42?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I know how I felt when I was 42. You know, like he's got to do, he's had injury. He's had plenty of injury that he's had to battle back from. I think they're complicated questions, and it's no guarantee that the Oilers are on a step-by-step improvement. You know, like they could easily take a little bit of a step back next year.
You could. Yeah, there's some work to be done. All right, Eastern Conference Final, as we record, is now a best of 3. The Tampa Bay Lightning have clearly flipped the script, but Ray, you've got a front row seat there. Should we be surprised at how the last 2 games have played out?
No, although when they come home 2-0, of course, the whole season's on the line.
Yeah.
Key moment. Well, there's a couple in the series. For me, in game 2, halfway through the second period, the Lightning got nothing going on. And so they smash up their lines. They move Stamkos into center with Palat and Kucherov. And that was a switch flip. Or flipped switch, whatever. The switch flipped.
Yeah, it works.
They were a different team. Since that time, they've been a completely different team and dominated play 5-on-5. The Rangers don't get anything going offensively if it's not on the power play. So that's number one. Number 2 is in game 2, game 3, halfway through the game, it's 2-0 New York. They're 28 minutes away from putting Tampa away. Power play goal Kucherov, power play goal Stamkos, last minute goal Palat. Now it's 2-1. And then in game 4, that was Tampa turned that into a slog fest. Yeah. There was nothing going on. They get the early goal and they make it ride until Kucherov scores late in the second period. So here's a couple of keys, I think. If people are listening to this today before game 5, the Rangers didn't have Ryan Strome for game 4, and they lost Filipino. If those guys can't go in game 5, 2 of their top 3 centers are out of the lineup. Yeah. Rangers are in big trouble. That's how you going to fill in. You move Kopp into the middle, you move Goudreau up, you move Kevin Rooney in. You're not getting much offense out of the middle of your ice. So that's a problem. Number 2, and this is really critical, is the Rangers have played so much better at home because they can get Zibanejad and Kreider away from a checking line. They have not fared very well on the road. Against Carolina, they had to go against Stahl in Carolina, and that didn't work for them. In Tampa, they went against Anthony Cirelli and Killorn and Hagel, and they got shut right down. So they'll be able to get away at home. And so it'll be interesting to see how much those 2 factors play into this.
All right, news around the NHL this week, Ray. Bruce Cassidy let go by the Boston Bruins, which, of course, adds another vacancy, but also another decent name that I think we can throw into the hiring mix. I was surprised at the timing and the decision of made and in the time that it was made, because if Bruce had been let go immediately following the end of the Boston Bruins season, I would have been less surprised. But because time went by, it just seemed a little weird at the timing. How much did exit interviews with players contribute to it? Whatever. How surprised were you that Cassidy was let go, and do you see him as a fit elsewhere?
I was surprised, but then not surprised when I heard Cam Neely talking at the end of the year. he kicked up some dust around that whole coaching spot. And I wasn't surprised, mainly because the president of the team said, "Oh, we got to look at how we communicate with our players," and so that's a red flag, right away. I think Cassidy, without being in that room, has done a tremendous job in Boston. I thought it was remarkable that they got to Game 7 against Carolina. They said they left money on the table. I thought they took all the money off the table to get to Game 7. That was my view of it. Now, given the injuries that they have, so McAvoy, Marchand.
It's wild. It's crazy.
Grzelcyk. Who else am I missing?
Marchand.
So there's Marchand, Grzelcyk, McAvoy, and the uncertainty around Patrice Bergeron.
Right.
So Cassidy's got 1 year left in his contract. To me, if you're going to make this move, you're looking at a younger guy that you think is going to grow with your team.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is, they don't have enough skill, and they were talking about that as well, and developing the young guys. They've missed in the draft. They've missed in free agency. They've missed with their trades. And you've got, Ryan Lindgren would look like a pretty good Boston Bruin right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he went in the Rick Nash trade.
Yeah.
Nick Foligno signs for a couple of years. Geez, he looked like he had a lot of miles on him this year.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, of course, the 2015 draft is to be talked about for a long, long time, where it was Don Sweeney's first crack at it, and it didn't go very well. So there's lots of blame around there, I guess. Cassidy would be high on a lot of coaches' lists, I think. A lot of teams' lists, I would think.
Yeah.
He's been very successful. Hasn't missed the playoffs in 6 years.
His record is terrific.
Yeah. All this communication with the players stuff, I don't know. I'm not in there. I'm not in there. And so maybe that did have something to do with it, as you heard through exit interviews or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know that.
All right, Ray, let's wrap up headlines. We're obviously strong supporters of women's hockey, and just, the outside the box thinking now, which is a tough way to describe it because it shouldn't be this, of hockey operations like the Vancouver Canucks, who are bringing these terrific hockey minds into a predominantly male environment in the National Hockey League. So let's give credit to the Montreal Canadiens. I remember in 2010 watching Marie-Philippe Poulin practicing with Team Canada in Vancouver prior to the Olympics, and standing there with, a couple of the men's team members, and they were just in awe of this woman skating out there and watching her play. And if we look back at the last dozen years of her playing career, we can still see how terrific a player she is, how smart she is, all of those things. Just an obvious fit, would you say, with the Montreal Canadiens to bring Marie-Philippe Poulin into the development side while she's still playing?
I was at a 0 on the surprise meter when that was announced. Kidding. I'm like, it makes so much sense in so many different ways. I'm going to say when she retires, she will be considered the greatest female player ever. Like, she's amazing in the way that she plays. Her drive, her talent, it's so obvious. I also think within very short order, Dregs, when a woman is named to a position in management or soon to be in coaching, it's just going to be a name.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be. Like, congratulations to Marie-Philippe. It's a well-deserved start on her path to wherever that's going to take her, whether it's coaching or management and some prominent place in the game. But I'm happy that Cammie got hired in Vancouver, and it was a story, but it's becoming less of one by the day.
Agreed.
I'm really happy about that, because this is a pool of talent, of management, of coaching, of thinking, of communicating that has never been tapped into before. And is it the right time? Well, the right time was before, but since it's now, it is the right time. And good on the Canadians, and good for her. Apparently she's going to play a bit longer, and and we're lucky to watch her play, and then she'll dive in full time. But good for her, and it's just the right thing.
Those are the headlines presented by our friends at Boston Pizza. Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to you by our good pals at Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, are you over beer? Why not try refreshing CC ginger ale next time you're having a drink or maybe watching a game? There's still lots to watch. And Ray, how about this? The CC and ginger ale mixed and ready in a can. It's available pretty much across Canada. We know summer is here, and it takes all of the challenges out of making that CC and ginger ale on your own, doesn't it? You just pop the cap and you're good to go.
Dregs, it's a little early here as we tape. It's 10:07 in the morning, but if I had one
5 o'clock somewhere,
the way I feel right now, I think a little wouldn't be out of the order.
Enjoy it responsibly.
Always.
All right, Ray, we've got Matt Calvert joining us on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Matt, you spent 8 seasons with the Columbus Blue Jackets organization, but finished your career, as many hockey fans know, in Colorado at the end of the 2021 season. Now you have to still be in touch with the guys, right? The Avalanche players as they brace for the Stanley Cup final. Is it difficult doing what you can do and cheering from the sidelines?
Extremely difficult. I don't know if bittersweet's the right word, but I just jealousy. You watch how good a hockey team they are and how great of an organization it is. And you go to battle with those guys for 3 straight years. And I would say the last 2 years, and even though I was injured, you're striving for the Stanley Cup, and you can feel it. And that's something you want your whole life as a kid and as a pro hockey player. And you're that close. And obviously injury reasons, it didn't work out for myself, but what a fun team to watch. And, I was just blessed to be a part of it for as long as I was.
Could you see this coming, this greatness that they appear to have right now?
I could. The big thing for me is I always go back to this story is I was a 28-year-old free agent that signed there, and a smart man once told me, it was Mark Letestu in Columbus with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He said, if you want to win a cup, Kelvy, follow the stars around. And he had come from Pittsburgh at the time, and I think he saw greatness. And when I went to Colorado, I saw the passion to win on and off the ice through the Nathan MacKinnons, the Landeskog, Rantanen coming up, eventually Makar coming in a year later, and you just see how good these guys are and just how they're still figuring things out. And we obviously I think we were hosting the second round the last 3 years, and the ability to learn from that and the depth they've added this year, I knew they were going to have great potential to get to the conference finals, let alone the Stanley Cup finals this season.
There's all kinds of stories about what a ferocious competitor Nate MacKinnon is. There's always, with guys like that, there always seems to be a time when they're competing so hard, something kind of funny happens out of it, where they kind of forget where they are. I have plenty of is there any you could maybe share a bit? I should ask you in advance, but just, it strikes me like something funny would have happened when he's trying to win so hard.
Well, I thought maybe you were bringing up the one in, I believe it was Calgary, when him and Bedsy were in a little bit of a battle.
That was good. Yeah, that was good.
He falls backwards, but no, you talk about how competitive he is, and I'll touch on what I said before. I signed him when I was 28, and their passion to win and get better every day made me want to get better at 28 years old. And a lot of times in this league, guys settle into their roles. They're okay with it. You do what you do every summer, and you're a bottom 6 guy. You don't put in a lot of extra work, and they made me want to go get a skill coach at 28 years old, which I never had in my career before, and get better. And I had a career season after, and then he got me eating healthier off the ice. And this is I don't know if Nate was 24, 25 at the time, but this is a younger guy that, should be looking up to me. And I'm looking up to how he does things, in his life and how he gets better. And I went dairy free for 6 weeks, and I've always been lucky enough to kind of eat what I want. And, he had me on different diets, and to me, that's a leader. And, one really funny, story is we would eat pregame all together, and anyone that would take, penne pasta with Alfredo sauce, he would absolutely lose it on them and say, "Boys, we're eating to win championships here." And as much as some guys would be like, "I want to eat what I want," it's true. It takes a lot to win the Stanley Cup. One team wins every year, and he wants to be great, and he wants everyone else around him to be great. And I think a lot of people follow in those footsteps.
What would he eat?
Chickpea pasta was his go-to thing. And
look, Ray the Italian is just squirming right here.
I'll tell you why, is because my wife is like, she's the food police. Like so chickpea pasta, I know it. It's not whole wheat penne pasta. I know the difference. You don't even need to eat it to know the difference, man.
Yep.
Hey, Matt, as you get older, so you're 28, you go to Colorado, and you unfortunately get banged up a bit, and you've got some injuries that are going along. Are you starting to think at that time about the future, or are you still in the moment of, I got to get healthy, I got to get back? What do I need to do to continue on?
A little bit of both. I think as you get, later in your 20s in the league, and I was always that guy. I didn't want to play forever, and I think part of that, and I look back at it now after missing a full year here, I miss the game so much now. But when you're in that grind and the injuries start piling up, and I had some concussion issues as well, and it wears on you. And I have two young boys, and you just start to think about the future a little bit more, right? And being an agent, being in the hockey world, whether it's management, agency, coaching, it's stuff you think about. And as you go along, you want to get more involved with the coaching staff, whether it was on the penalty kill. And Nolan Pratt, who I've known most of my career, was great. He would invite me and Pierre-Edouard Bellemare in and ask what we thought about the penalty kill, help out here and there. And you just start looking at different avenues of the game and different opportunities that, might interest you once you are done playing.
And so did you always have a lean to the coaching side? Did you think you would, hey, maybe management? Did you, like, where was that thought taking you? Because it can be overwhelming, really, to think about you're going to do something different than you've ever done.
It really can. I got right away. I got an opportunity. Colorado offered me a development coach job, and I'm real close with Chris McFarland, the assistant GM there, and he basically said this is a great opportunity if you want to stay with the team, and it can lead you into management or coaching, because you're dealing with young players every day. You also get to go on the ice, and it's kind of multifaceted, and figure out what direction you want to go in. And the big thing for me is, I had mentioned, I got two boys. They're 4 and 6 years old, and they got a lot of energy. And living in the hockey world, you travel a lot, and as you guys know, and you miss a lot of that family time. And the one thing I thought about all year long was, how can I be involved with them? How can I coach them, but also stay involved in the game? And that's kind of where the agency came in. I'm independent. We run our own business. We can be as big as we want. We can be as small as we want. And then I manage my own schedule. And that was very intriguing to me. So that's kind of why I ended up going down that route.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about...
Dregs, if you don't mind, I just got one question before we get into your agency, Matt, which is really super interesting. And I'm always interested in this, because when I retired, now I knew what I was going to do. I had signed a contract to start broadcasting. I went to a game in October. So I retired in May, and I went to a game in October. And my wife, Cammie, and I were sitting at the game in Vancouver, and the players came out of the tunnel, and the music's going, and I wasn't even really prepared. And I started to cry, because I was like, I'm never going to get to do that again. Like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And it was really, even now when I think of it, it hits me really heavy. Like, did you have in October, November, December, anything like that made you go, oh man, I'm not going to do this again?
Yeah, I couldn't watch. I watched three Avs games all year. the odd Jets game. You know, it was on in the coach's room. I was with the Wheat Kings this year as a development coach as I was rehabbing, and you know, I really struggled watching because I missed competing so much, and I missed the plane rides. There's a few times I was sitting on my couch in Brandon, Manitoba, watching the Avs, and you know, I know they're getting on the plane after that road game and gonna play poker and get to the next hotel in New York City, and I just it was really hard for me. It was almost like I was running from it all year, and then I said, you know what, I'm gonna watch playoffs. I'm gonna get more involved. I watched a lot of junior hockey this year, but and the hardest thing for me is kind of jumping into that development coach role. Is I was sitting in the press box and trying to figure out how am I going to coach these kids when, you know, basically I used to be the guy I'd go in intermission, you have a bad period, right? You get frustrated. Well, as a player, you can do something about it. As a coach, you got to figure out another way to do something about it and motivate other people. And that was the hardest thing for me, what was not being able to just do it myself. So yeah, it's, I know a lot of people say, you know, hockey players, whatever, they're financially set, they are what they are, but the transition is a lot harder. And talking to former players like yourself, that was what helped me through it. And they said, just take your time, you know, don't rush into anything and figure out truly what you want to do.
Well, let's just dive into the background of Cal Sports Management, which Matt, you and your partner recently introduced, at least introduced publicly, but that's not something that comes together in a couple of weeks or even a few months, right? I mean, how long have you been thinking about this? I know in just doing some research dating all the way back to your draft year, 2008, when you're playing with the Brandon Wheat Kings, you thought, all right, well, playing in the NHL is my dream, but I'm more likely going to become an accountant rather than a professional hockey player. So has this been something that has been developing as, you know, your career kind of moved into its later stages?
Yeah, I was back to the accountant comment. I was I was an 18-year-old rookie on the Wheat Kings, right? And I was just a kid that played hockey in minor hockey in Brandon, Manitoba, and Kelly McCrimmon brought me in and just said, "Hey, I want to sign you." And I said, "Well, I'm going to need 4 years of schooling, or I'll probably go the NCAA route." And I was a really small kid, and then I went to Brandon. I got drafted to the NHL that first year, and I honestly didn't even know much about what central scouting rankings were. And I was just a kid playing junior hockey, and I got drafted, and the only thing I was worried about was going to become an accountant at Brandon University after. That was my life goal. So it worked out well for me, but the big part of Cal Sports Management was I met Joe Caligiuri when I played junior hockey in Brandon. He was my goalie. He went on to play CIS hockey, and then become a lawyer, and then first represented Colin Wilson on the Avalanche. I kind of connected them, and I was just always intrigued. I was with Titan Sports Management my whole career, and I was always intrigued by the agency world, and the big part for me is I love how they can always be the positive guys. They can cheer for the Colorado Avalanche. They can cheer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You cheer for your clients. And the big parts that we want to do is, or I certainly want to do, is use my experience and help these kids get better. Because a lot of times, you know, kids will call you, "Hey, coach is playing me on the fourth line. They're scratching me." And it's like, you're a great player. The grass is greener. But at the same time, these kids need some truth. And it needs to be, how can we get you to that next level? Do we have to have conversations with the coaches, with the GMs? What do they want to see from you? And I really want to work on the development side of things as well, where let's get you to that next level. Let's get that kid that's stuck in the AHL for 3 years, that is that tweener guy. How do we find a way to get you to the NHL? And whether that's mental, whether that's physical, buying into the system, we'll find a way. And that's kind of the approach I'm going to take.
Now, you mentioned your past, your agents that you worked with, and so I think we all steal or borrow, whatever the term is that you use, and so you have your way you think something should be done. Like for me in broadcasting, the guy I stole from at the start was John Davidson. I thought he was the very best, and just JD's way, he always had such enthusiasm about what he was doing, and I'm like, okay, I got to steal a little bit of that. Like, you talk to different agents. You have your own agent. You have your own style. Is that kind of how you come up with a persona that this is what Cal Sports is going to be, or is it just you?
I wouldn't say I would steal from anyone personally. You talk about JD. I obviously had JD in Columbus, and he had a saying. It was funny because usually the players are the face of the franchise, but when we brought in JD, it was like our biggest free agent signing, and he had a commercial in Columbus, and it was, we're going to build this organization brick by brick. And for being a media guy like yourself, it was that was kind of what the motto became, is brick by brick, and patience, and one guy at a time. And so yeah, as far as Joe and myself, the one guy Joe looks up to, I know it was Don Baisley, being from Winnipeg, and how well respected he is. And I'm not sure he knew him, but he's heard many stories. And for myself, it's the one guy I look up to when dealing with players was always Dan Hinote in Columbus. And that's kind of more on the coaching side of things. But this guy was so good at being that bridge assistant coach between the players and the coaches. And he would hear what, I believe it was Todd Richards was their head coach at the time. He'd hear what Todd Richards was saying. And then he knew how to come to the room and talk to players. And that's a huge asset, I believe, is be able to talk to hockey players, because a lot of times agents will be talking, or whoever it is, and management, and they don't know how to talk with players and how to get through with them. And that's where I hope to be that bridge guy between me and Joe and the player.
Well, you definitely have a tremendous background to help Cal Sports Management along. We've probably got about 4, maybe 5 minutes left here, Matt. And I don't want to wrap up this segment on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast without giving you the opportunity to kind of clear the air and square some things off with Ray Ferraro. So take us back to a situation, maybe it was a goal, and something that Ray, the terrific broadcaster, said in his analysis.
Okay, hang on. No. I think I know it. I think I know it. And I'm going to let you go, but I'm almost certain it was a playoff game in Washington.
Absolutely nailed it. So we're in Washington, and emotional playoff game. I think I block a shot. You got to buff up your story a bit. Poke the puck ahead, breakaway, and just go to elite level fake shots. Completely miss it. Braden Holtby's jockstraps in the stands, and Spinorama after, tuck it in with my backhand, and Ray Ferraro after. That is one of the worst goals I have ever seen. And I don't know if there's playoff hockey or whatever. I'm sitting there watching the highlights after. I'm like, man, if Ray Ferraro wasn't a former Brandon Wheat-King, then we got some issues if I see him in the hallway.
You know what? It's funny, when Dregs had contacted you, Matt, first thing I think of was, oh my God, that breakaway in Washington. Because, so as I remember, it's an attempt to deke, loses the puck. And I think I said, I think that's the worst breakaway I've ever seen. And it scored. And it went in. Oh, I'm cracking up. When you bring up that, Dregs, right away I go right back to that. And I'm like, oh.
Okay, so hold on. As I'm communicating with Matt, he's like, yeah, no, God, I'm eager to do it. He obviously wanted to talk about Cal Sports Management, all of those things. And he said, and I'm like, well, do you have any stories that we can throw out there? And he goes, yeah, I've got a couple. Obviously taking the puck in the head, and the controversy back in 2019 against the Canucks is one, which you can touch on if you like. And the other was, but I do have a bone to pick with Ray Ferraro. So there you go. So we've cleared the air.
Hey, it's in the net. Who the hell cares, right? Who cares what the old guys got to say?
Oh, that's awesome.
It is awesome.
Hey, what's your favorite? If you could put together 2 or 3 highlights of your career, drafted, signing, like, what would you think? Like, I can go quickly through and do that in mine. Do you have a couple touched moments that you go, yeah, I'll never forget that?
I would say number one, I guess first was the draft, just because kind of what I told you guys before. I did not expect to be drafted in the NHL. I was not drafted in the WHL. I was drafted in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League by the Winkler Flyers, and I was a 3rd rounder. So a lot of times in this draft, they'll draft guys, in 3rd round because they think they're going to the WHL. I was a true 3rd rounder. And it was just a surreal moment for me and my family. We were like, what is the NHL? What is the NHL draft? And then I would say the next one would be my overtime goal against Pittsburgh. It was Columbus Blue Jackets' first ever win, and it was, man, the feeling. I think it was double OT. Your teammates piling on top of you, and I lastly, my other overtime winner against Washington, which I think you were covering that same game. It's like the amount of texts you get, phone calls after, the feeling when you're in playoff hockey and you score, like you get one win for your team. It's, man, I can't even describe the feeling. But those were definitely my three biggest moments, and something that still give me chills to this day. You watch the videos this year to try to feel like you still got it right when your first year retirement. But what moments though? What moments to look back on?
Well, we know, Matt, that you're going to work as hard in the sports agency business with Cal Sports Management as you did in carving out a terrific NHL career. We appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
All right, boys. Well, thanks for having me on, and I hope to see you guys around the rink soon.
All the best, Matt. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
All right, time to raise a glass of 44-year-old CC. Matt Calvert for joining us today, presented by our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey. The 44-year-old release is available everywhere, which is a blessing to us all. And Matt Calvert, I don't know how much interaction you've had with Matt over the years, right? As
not much.
We didn't get into the fact that you're, both former Brandon Wheat Kings and, just the tradition that you share as Brandon Wheat King stars and whatnot, but an unassuming, very good NHL player. He doesn't seem to want to give himself a lot of credit the way he talked about, being drafted by the Winkler Flyers of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League as a third round pick. But I tell you what, and it's a good thing about sport in general, but specific to our case in hockey, where you see those very strong-willed and hardworking guys, they just find a way, right? Whether it's major junior hockey, tier 2 hockey, or being a really good player in the NHL, Matt Calvert is an excellent example of work ethic and perseverance.
To take that a step farther, when you're a player like Matt, nobody's ever in your corner.
Right.
You're just scrapping and clawing, and you're a guy. You're a guy at camp. Kelly McCrimmon wants to sign him at 18 years old to Brandon. That might not sound like anything to people listening. However, if you're not in the league at 17, you're not really a prospect.
Right.
You're just a guy that's coming into, maybe you're late to it. Maybe you're a late developer. And in Matt's case, he said he was small, but he was also local.
Right. Yeah.
And so the Wheat Kings would have seen him frequently. And they're probably like, man, this guy plays. He's a pain in the rear end wherever he goes. We should, we'll give him an opportunity.
Well, and how about him playing hardball too, right? Where he said, I need the full education package. Otherwise, I might go the NCAA route. So he was very focused on what his next path would be.
Well, that also tells you what he thought his NHL chances were.
Yeah.
But you don't. So a player like Matt would have to fight every rung of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what to me is impressive. Like when I got drafted, I won our scoring race in our league by 50 points. I was the 4th player picked in our league. Like I thought I was going to be an NHL player. And then I'm like, I'm not even the best player in the league. Like what the hell, because I thought, well, I don't know. I thought a lot of things, but so I felt I had to fight, but I ended up scoring a lot. So you have people that are like, yeah, he can't do this and this and this, but he can score. Matt would have had to claw and scratch, and then he had a 8-year career, and now he's on to his management business. I'm really happy to hear that he had this plan, and he's able to, to take it to the first step with his partner Joe Caligiuri and start building out a business. Like that takes a lot of fortitude to say, yeah, I'm ready to do this. And so good for him.
All right, Coolbet Chris Abbott from Coolbet.co joins us on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast. And we're all now riveted, of course, to the Eastern Conference Final. As we record, we're getting set for Game 5. But Game 4 for you, Chris Abbott, was significant monetarily, right? When Artemi Panarin made it 3-1, you're hooting and hollering like you just won $1 bazillion.
It's so funny. So the Canadian Gaming Association is holding a conference here in Toronto this week. So I'm at like the social event on the opening night. And even amongst all the gaming people that were in one bar, I'm the only guy on a 3-1 goal, losing my mind. Because before the game, I parlayed Stamkos and Panarin to score. Everyone around me, at least they understood. At least they're like, oh, he must have hit something there. So here I am, high five and fist pumping. I've also got a saves prop for Vasilevsky, which hit, and yeah, so it was funny among like-minded people there the other night. But it really is interesting. One of the panels that we took in this week, people talking about just different ways to watch the game. And there was a gentleman there from MLSE and talking about some of their partnerships and stuff. And he was saying, in a game where TFC is up 3 or 4-0, it's not over, right? It's still good for somebody. And that's the fun part.
Hey, Chris, walk us through the swings of an odds, an odds book for a series. So we've got Rangers, Tampa. I assume Tampa was a favorite going in, and then they'd lose 2. I mean, walk us through how that happens and what has it been for this series?
Well, the first thing that happens, Ray, when a favorite goes down big in a series like that is then you're exposed to risk on both sides. So before the series started, you would have had a lot of people play a really good price, about 2-1 on the Rangers as a series underdog. And then lo and behold, after 2 games, you've got Tampa, 3 or 4-1 underdog in the series. So at that point, if you've already got your Rangers ticket, you can turn around and bet Tampa to win the series as well. And you're guaranteed a profit, and a pretty decent one with those kind of odd swings. So this is actually a terrible scenario for a sportsbook. Great scenario for a bettor. Now, the one thing you don't want to get sucked in on is if you miss that, is like try and do that now with 4 games gone in the series. Now it should be kind of a game to game, or look at the Stanley Cup odds, right? One of these teams is going to play Colorado, so you can get some odds based on those. But the wild swings, especially when a favorite goes down early. So if you look at it the other way, Colorado was such a big favorite, and they just kept becoming a bigger favorite. So you don't get any risk there as a sports book. And likewise, there's probably not as much profit to be made as a bettor on that side. But if you bet the Rangers to win this series, and then you bet Tampa after they're down 2 games, you're sitting pretty. You're got the Cheshire cat grin on you right now.
So I assume, are there odds right now, Colorado versus what's left of the field?
Yeah, there certainly is. So there's a couple of different ways right now. So Colorado is a -213 favorite to win the Stanley Cup. Rangers plus 650, Tampa plus 285. But you can also bet the hypothetical matchup, which is what I'd probably do in this scenario. You can bet Colorado versus Tampa. Colorado is a -189 versus Tampa's plus 155 in the final. Or you could bet Colorado against the Rangers. They're a bigger favorite there at -278, Rangers plus 225. That way, if you bet one of those, if you like New York or Tampa to win against Colorado, if they don't make it that far, that bet is void. Whereas if you bet one of them to win the Stanley Cup now and they don't get out of this series, then you're dead before they even drop the puck on the final. So there's a few different ways to bet it, but Colorado, the overwhelming favorite, no matter which way you look at it.
Okay, one last question on Colorado then. We've talked previously about the information that's available in the NFL versus, the NHL. And of course, I'm talking about health. How do bettors look at it now when there's Kadri, there's Kemper, there's Cogliano? Am I missing anyone, Dregs? At least those 3 that would be, there's some murkiness around their availability. How would people go about it? Because there isn't any information.
Yeah, and alternatively, do you see a healthy Braden Point or healthy-ish Braden Point in the final if Tampa gets there? So I think all those things do come into play. I do think these numbers would weigh some of that, but I think the general population sees the name Colorado Avalanche and maybe don't think about the fact that Well, their number one goalie is a little dinged up. The backup's been good so far, but how long does that last? So yeah, it'll be curious to see how the bets come in. For me, I'm betting the Eastern Conference team either way here. I think the better goaltending.
Yeah.
You talk about the injuries with Colorado, so maybe if the price was a little closer, you think more about the Avalanche. But as a big favorite right now, I think the only way for me to play this, barring anything changing injury wise, would be to take the Eastern Conference team coming through here.
All right, we'll let you go with this. The Conn Smythe odds adjusting even a little bit at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, when you look at the Conn Smythe odds, Cale Makar's plus 170 favorite. MacKinnon not far behind him at plus 200. This, though, is now a good time, if you do think an Eastern Conference team is going to win, to bet on a player from one of those teams, because the odds are longer, because you have to keep Rangers and Lightning players in the consideration. Once we get to the final, those will tighten up again. So, for example, a Shesterkin or Kucherov bet 8-1, Vasilevsky 8-1. I mean, I take 3 units and bet on those 3 guys right now, and you get a 5-1 profit afterwards, right? So 4-1. So I think that might be somewhere to look if you're thinking Conn Smythe odds and you think the Eastern Conference team will win. Then there's some good value to be had on some top players with New York and Tampa.
You bet. Timing is everything. Abs, thanks for doing this.
Absolutely, it is. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Later.
All right, time for Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. You can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, @Ray and Dregs, or on the website, rayandregs.com. Ask Ray and Dregs Anything is presented by Doer, the world's most comfortable pants and shorts. You haven't been home yet, have you? To grab hold of the t-shirts, the shorts, everything that Doer has provided. Man, you're in for a pleasant surprise.
Day and a half.
Yeah.
Since May the 2nd. I've been home. So okay. Yes, my clothes are starting to revolt. I've done laundry, but they're like, don't put me on anymore. I've had enough of you.
Well, I mean, you only take 2 shirts and 2 suits, so you keep it pretty simple.
I actually had to, Dregs, it got to the point, I had to buy a new suitcase, and I had to buy some clothes. I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, you've got a pleasant surprise. Compliments of Doer.
Awesome. Thank you, Doer.
Remember, use code RND15 and you will save 15% off everything. Check it out at doer.ca. All right, let's go to Twitter first, Ray, from High and Wide Hockey, @High and Wide Hockey. At what point does injury overtake skill? Now, we're referring to Game 4, perhaps. Leon Draisaitl played over 25 minutes, as you know, Ray, but he could barely stand up. I mean, every time he was bumped or he fell down, just lost an edge, whatever, he was struggling to get back to the bench. Dylan Holloway played just under 4 minutes, as High and Wide Hockey recalls, in the game with 11 forwards to start with. And then Draisaitl just turned it into an amazing show of determination. But does him playing that much hurt actually help? I mean, he contributed to 4 goals, so he did his job and then some. But is there that fine line between, being able to play as hurt as Leon Draisaitl was and not being able to play?
Yeah, for sure there is, but the player will know before anybody else. Like, I broke my ankle, dislocated it, and when I came back, it was so weak, it felt like I was standing on a butter knife. And I was like, okay, I can't play yet. Like, I knew before Al Arbour told me I couldn't play, I knew that I couldn't play. There would have been a point in that game where Leon would have said, I just can't do it. I just can't. Except that point clearly never came. Now, as for Dylan Holloway playing 4 minutes, it's the kid's first NHL game.
Yeah.
The Colorado Avalanche play in a rocket ship. That game must have felt like nothing he's ever felt before. And he was only there because of the other injuries that the Oilers had sustained. So, does Jay Woodcroft have any confidence to put him on the ice? It would be really hard. Hey, go get your feet wet in a playoff game.
Really
right?
Tough.
Like, how are you going to do that? And so So here's the thing. I will say this. So Draisaitl's injury would have been evaluated by the training staff, would have been evaluated by Leon. They would have told him, you can't do any more damage to this. It's going to feel like crap, but you can't do any more damage. The rehab is going to be rest, and it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks if you take it now or in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like nothing more is going to happen. You've got a high ankle sprain. Right? So
yeah, play
we
with
would
the
all
pain
do
if
that.
you can.
If you can, you would play with it as much as you can.
Yeah. All right. From @McGurgus23 on Instagram. And this is related to the Arturi Lehkonen. Well, it wasn't a high stick goal because they, had a look at it, and it wasn't a high stick by legal standards, the shoulder, because it didn't go directly in. If it had, then they look at the crossbar. So McGurgus23 is asking, do you think the NHL should consider changing the high sticking rule? And they go on to say, if a player high sticks a puck above his shoulders that then hits the opposing goalie, a player on that team cannot be the first to contact that puck without play being blown dead. So sounds like an Oilers fan to me.
No,
yeah.
No, they shouldn't rethink the rule. What they should rethink, I think, the high stick rule should be the same all over the ice. I do not believe there should be a difference that if you tip it into the net, it has to be below the crossbar. And the reason I say that, there's so many times it's virtually impossible, even with all the cameras around the rink, to tell if the stick is above the crossbar or not, because you don't get a perfect view of that height, but you always have a good view and a good evaluation, whether it's shoulder or not. I think it should be shoulder height, tip it, it goes in the net, hits the goalie, whatever. If it's below shoulder height, it's good. If it's above shoulder height, it's no good. That was a good goal, and the best team won anyway. I mean,
All right. 2 more quick ones here, and Ask Ray and Dregs anything from Anthony Rodriguez @Anthony.D.Rodriguez on Instagram. When do players normally return to training, Ray, after a playoff exit? So how long is too long nowadays to wait before you're back at it?
You probably take 3 to 4 weeks. You get yourself rested. You do some therapy to whatever your ailments are, because everybody's got some. And then you get rolling. The year we went to the conference finals, I really felt under the gun because it was late June.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, I can't take too much time here because next training camp is in 2.5 months.
Yeah.
So the longer you go, the shorter your break, but generally 3 to 4 weeks.
All right. One more. Ryan Matheson @Ryan Matheson, HPN. How quickly do you book tee times once eliminated from the playoffs?
I would say the next day you're thinking about it. Thinking about it to the point of booking them, and also thinking about, can I get away for a vacation?
Mm-hmm. And maybe you do both. You're golfing and you're in a nice spot.
And if you're married, while you're driving into the meeting, your wife is working on the vacation. Like what else are you going to do? You're like, you have a year-end wrap-up. The guys see each other, and then you're like, hey, we'll see you at camp. And summer's on. Like it's time to relax. You can't do anything about what just happened.
And it's funny because, we follow some of the players on social media, right? I saw Milan Lucic. I think he's in Italy. I saw Blake Coleman somewhere post a picture with his family. Hey, look, they're entitled to have some fun and good lives. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Well, honestly, the second the season's over, what the hell are you going to do about it? You've just shook hands. They don't let you go out and play anymore. You might as well get on with your summer. And for most, I would equate it to this. It's really kind of a good question. But the balloon has been popped, or the knot, I guess it's the better way, the knot has been untied of the balloon. You just deflate.
Yeah. Like
all this pent up energy and angst and emotion is just like, it's gone. And you're like, man, I got to relax. And so for me, it was golf. My kids were little then. It was family vacation, and usually Disney, going there and walking around with 8 million people was so relaxing.
So as we wrap up here, and we are wrapping up, I'm feeling for you. I am. I mean, once again, there you are. You're in a hotel room. You know, we've done 4 podcasts where Ray Ferraro is in a hotel room. No surprise to anyone. But even for a brief, and I'm not traveling, so I'm not comparing my life to yours even a little bit, but I'm going to share a one-day reprieve that I had, which was yesterday. Mason and I, my son and I, went to a friend's cottage, like an hour and a half outside of Toronto. And man, we spent the day in a canoe fishing on this little lake yesterday, 6.5 hours. Night before we got there, had a quick sauna, jumped in the lake, watched the hockey game, Game 4, Eastern Conference Final, got up early, went fishing for 6.5 hours and caught a lot of fish.
But see, that's a day. That's
a day. And it was so recharging. So that's why I say, I know you love what you do. You're the best in the business and all that. But, you know, to be away from your family and to be away from home and everything that playing golf, for heaven's sake. Yeah. I mean, part of your routine. I was reminded of that on the canoe yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dregs, because 2 things are possible and are factual right now for me. One is I love my job and I love doing these games. It's the best. And 2 is I really miss my family.
Yeah.
You know, like Landon has been home from Germany for a month. I've seen him, I would say, a combined 2 hours. Reese and Riley have been playing soccer for 6 weeks. I haven't seen anything. I'm tired of talking to Cammie on FaceTime. Like the FaceTime comes on. I'm like, how's the day? She's like, busy, good. How's yours? Busy, good. You know, like after a while, there's, you know, I don't know. Yeah, and so, and then I'm trying to connect with Matt and the grandkids and being away. I'm in this hotel. If I got to keep eating in restaurants. Restaurants are great. Love them. Yeah. I hate them. Same thing. I love them and I just want to eat at home. And so the time will come. And so it'll be, so the finals are going to start either the 15th or the 18th. So I'm going to get home for a day and a half here between, however the series end. And oh boy, I'm looking forward to it. No. You will not see this hoodie in the finals. I can guarantee it. When we do a podcast, I'll be on
You're refreshed and ready?
And this hoodie, it's been a good friend, but it's not going to make the trip.
That's outstanding. Huge shout out, Ray, to our partners who make the podcast possible, our title sponsors, our good friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. Thank you. By Boston Pizza, pick it up, get it delivered to your door. Just let Boston Pizza do the cooking tonight. And by Doer, use code RND15 to save 15% off everything at doer.ca. That is episode 37 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Be well, everybody, and look forward to our next episode, episode 38, dropping your way soon.
Thanks for listening.